Rita, can you hurry up? No one's going to wait for us. Dima shifted impatiently in the doorway, urging his wife on. Don't overthink it, you'll outshine everyone there. Stop fussing with your makeup, you're the very picture of beauty. Dima and Rita were rushing to a party hosted by an old acquaintance of theirs, a high-profile politician celebrating his birthday with an extravagant soiree. Coming. My pendant rolled under the bed. Rita scrambled to retrieve the treacherous piece of jewelry that had chosen the worst possible moment to escape its owner. Dima glanced at his watch in despair. Forget it. Rita finally exhaled. We really are late. The man of the hour might actually take offense. Rita was a punctual person and demanded the same from her employees. There was nothing worse than tardiness. It was a direct insult to those left waiting. She herself couldn't stand it when clients showed up late. Waiting and playing catch-up, there's nothing more frustrating. That truth wasn't invented by her, after all. Clients like that? She'd rather drop them. Who knew what else they might mess up? As Rita mused, her pendant finally turned up. She fastened it to her chain there, perfect. Dima and Rita practically tumbled down the stairs in their haste. Who would have guessed they were successful businesspeople? The couple owned a thriving investment firm and had made quite a name for themselves in the industry. Naturally, they owned a luxury Mercedes with a private driver, but tonight, they looked more like a pair of mischievous teens fleeing the scene of some prank. Incidentally, their driver had the night off, let the man rest. Tonight, they'd opted for an Uber instead. Just for a change of pace. Dima and Rita had known each other since their university days. Both had studied economics, finance, stock markets, the arcane workings of investment exchanges. For the longest time, they hadn't even been aware of each other's existence. Until one day, Rita got lost in the university's labyrinthine halls. She couldn't find the right classroom to save her life. Charging ahead, she nearly collided headfirst with a guy laughing loudly with his friends, his back turned, oblivious to her approach. Luckily, his buddies yanked him aside just in time. The near miss only fueled another round of roaring laughter. And, incidentally, sparked their first meeting. Dima watched Rita's flushed face and realized how incredibly lucky he was to have met her. She was astonishingly beautiful. Incidentally, Rita had taken an immediate liking to Dima too. Tall, lean, and athletic, he sported that era's fashionable flat-top haircut that accentuated his chiseled features. They couldn't stop admiring each other. After drinking his fill of the sight, Dima decided it was time to learn this beauty's name. When he heard Rita, his face lit up. A true pearl indeed, just as her name meant in ancient Greek. As they began dating, they were surprised to discover mutual acquaintances. What a small world. Dima had always been the life of the party, constantly surrounded by crowds, something Rita couldn't help but notice. She puzzled over how she'd never spotted him before. Dima made some discreet inquiries about Rita and started showering her with attention. Soon their social circle faded away as they found perfect contentment in each other's company alone. By their third year at university, Dima proposed, and Rita joyfully accepted. Rita's father raised no objections to his daughter's decision. Having raised her single-handedly, he'd always indulged her. If this was her choice, so be it, he wouldn't stand in the way. He even had a gift for the future financiers, his own business. While such ventures brought serious profits in the West, they were just gaining momentum locally. It would provide more than enough for comfortable living. He'd established it specifically for the young couple. Rita wasn't surprised by this lavish gift. Her father was quite the established businessman. But the gift came with one condition: Rita would have complete control as sole owner, no ifs, ands, or buts. Dima couldn't claim any stake in the company. This didn't bother the young man in the slightest. He wasn't proud, especially having landed such a catch. He'd still live comfortably without lifting a finger. He'd hold some nominal position. After all, he couldn't very well be a househusband to a businesswoman. Truth be told, Dima wasn't fond of work, preferring leisure and merriment. His ideal scenario was getting paid handsomely for doing nothing. In short, Rita was the perfect solution. The Victoria restaurant buzzed like a disturbed beehive when Dima and Rita finally burst in. The guest of honor was already basking in heartfelt congratulations. Ivan Palik, the deputy's name, good-naturedly acknowledged toasts in his honor. Spotting Rita, flushed as a lobster, he broke into a smile. The young woman knew the official fancied her, but his position prevented any impropriety. Fate had brought them together through Rita's business when Ivan visited her firm. He wanted to diversify his portfolio with some securities. After all, one had to keep up with the times, Bribes were becoming passé. Besides, Rita's company dealt in real estate, and he'd taken a liking to a charming country house. Two birds with one stone, as they say. Rita, ever the professional, had gone out of her way to assist the official. She proposed a lucrative franchise opportunity and hand-picked an exquisite cottage for him, even personally conducting the tour. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Ivan, disarmingly candid, confessed he was divorced and desperately seeking companionship. "You've no idea how weary I am of bachelorhood, Rita," he sighed, dropping delicate hints about how he'd love to meet someone like her. The flattery warmed her, his wit, manners, and the way he kissed her hand like some storybook hussar. Who even did that anymore? Made her feel at ease. He called her Ritulia, a touch too familiar, but women, as everyone knows, are won through their ears. And in business, a little familiarity was a small price to pay. Dima had tagged along to a couple of viewings but remained listless, offering neither conversation nor praise for the property. Soon, he'd abandoned the charade altogether, opting instead to stay at the office gaming on his computer. Though he held a managerial title with a respectable salary, his role extended no further than pixelated shootouts. Why lift a finger when married to a woman like Rita? Between virtual battles, he cozied up to Zina, the new secretary hired for everything but secretarial work. Zina sprinted between tasks, booking Rita's spa appointments, ordering sushi, grocery runs. The businesswoman had no time for domesticities, and Zina, with her generous salary, had no room for complaint. Back at the party, Ivan Palik, now thoroughly toasted, his eyes glistening with liquor and longing, finally extricated himself from the chorus of praise and beelined for the Smirnoffs, for that was the couple's surname. The object of his desire stood tantalizingly close, though decorum forbade the colorful compliments dancing on his tongue. Too many prying eyes. Instead, he gushed about his new cottage, a purchase he'd never have made without Rita. Dima, overhearing, stifled a yawn and wandered off in search of aged cognac. Rita, meanwhile, listened to Ivan's honeyed words and admitted to herself, had she not been married, she'd have leapt into an affair with this man. How far might it have gone? She knew exactly what Ivan wanted. She was, after all, a grown woman. Dima wandered aimlessly through the grand hall, periodically sipping the exorbitantly priced Martell. Suddenly, it struck him he'd left Rita alone. He spun around, spotting her across the room, and scowled as Ivan ogled his wife like a stray cat eyeing a sausage. The drunken official kept accidentally brushing against her, whispering God knows what into her ear. And Rita, instead of recoiling, was laughing coquettishly, utterly at ease. Consumed by jealousy, Dima stormed over. He seized Rita's wrist and dragged her toward the exit like a caveman claiming spoils. "What the hell's wrong with you? Flirting with him in front of everyone like some..." He bit back a vulgarity. "Have you lost your mind?" Rita wrenched her arm free, genuinely baffled. "What's your problem? You're hurting me." They stood frozen in the hall's center, Rita rubbing her reddened wrist, Dima sobering rapidly. Why had he overreacted? Alcohol-induced paranoia, obviously. Now pride choked his apology. The ride home in their usual Uber was glacial. Back home, Rita broke the silence. "You know I'm honest," she said, lighting a cigarette. "If I ever loved someone else, I'd tell you immediately." Dima nodded. Her bluntness was why he'd married her. Rita was flint, uncompromising, dependable. She expected the same from him, one flirtatious text, one stray kiss, and she'd divorce him without hesitation. And yet he had been wrong. A possessive fool. But could he help it? Married to a woman like Rita, men would always swarm like flies to honey. He couldn't exactly lock her in a closet or make her wear a rabbit mask. The absurd image made him smirk. Rita, however, felt soiled, as if spat upon. An old proverb echoed in her mind, "A thief sees thieves everywhere." Rita woke up late the next morning. She'd spent too many nerves the night before hashing things out with Dima. He wasn't home. In fact, he'd been acting suspiciously lately, rushing off to work as if it were a holiday, and at the crack of dawn no less. He blamed it on mountains of paperwork, but Rita knew better. Her husband was a world-class slacker. She started watching him more closely, anticipating some trick. But so far, no smoking gun. Either Dima was being careful, or Rita desperately needed a vacation, preferably by the sea. The phone rang from the living room. Rita winced. She had zero desire to crawl out of her cozy nest. But the damn thing kept shrieking like a stuck pig. She glared at it. "Silence, you." All calls could wait until business hours. But the ringing refused to quit. With a sigh, she shuffled over to see who was so damn persistent. Still asleep? Well, your precious Dima's busy tumbling with another woman. The voice on the line was obviously disguised. Might want to take a closer look at Zina, just a friendly hint. Your husband's at her place almost every morning. Then the lovebirds head to work together. And why do you care? Rita managed before the line went dead. She scratched her head. Dima cheating? But how could she be sure this wasn't just some troll or, as the kids say, a hater? No, wait, Hatterette. The voice was unmistakably female. Maybe some scorned woman getting revenge? Dima was handsome enough to have turned down admirers. Still, why was he bolting out the door at dawn? Calling him a workaholic would be a stretch. The caller clearly knew about his early disappearances. No, she wouldn't act rashly. She'd think it through, weigh every angle. Rita dragged herself to the bathroom, then downed a cup of brutally strong Arabica. Coffee cleared the mind. But what was there to figure out? She needed someone impartial, someone with no skin in the game. Enter Anya, the only person who could help. Rita's best friend, a born techie who thought in straight lines, like vectors on a graph. No nonsense, zero delusions. Rita called her and arranged to meet at a pizzeria that evening. Nothing like drowning sorrows in a margarita. Anya might be pragmatic, but she was also a riot, the perfect tension breaker. Then Rita remembered Ivan had asked for her help at the party. He needed advice on acquiring land in a neighboring town for a rehab center. A noble cause, he'd said, for people in dire straits. The moment she heard it, Rita nearly teared up. What a golden-hearted man. Of course she'd help for a consultant's fee, naturally. The paperwork alone would take weeks, maybe a month. She'd need to send a firm representative. Rita woke up late the next morning. She'd spent too many nerves the night before hashing things out with Dima. He wasn't home. In fact, he'd been acting suspiciously lately, rushing off to work as if it were a holiday, and at the crack of dawn no less. He blamed it on mountains of paperwork, but Rita knew better. Her husband was a world-class slacker. She started watching him more closely, anticipating some trick. But so far, no smoking gun. Either Dima was being careful, or Rita desperately needed a vacation, preferably by the sea. The phone rang from the living room. Rita winced. She had zero desire to crawl out of her cozy nest. But the damn thing kept shrieking like a stuck pig. She glared at it. Silence, you. All calls could wait until business hours. But the ringing refused to quit. With a sigh, she shuffled over to see who was so damn persistent. Still asleep? Well, your precious Dima's busy tumbling with another woman. The voice on the line was obviously disguised. Might want to take a closer look at Zina, just a friendly hint. Your husband's at her place almost every morning. Then the lovebirds head to work together. And why do you care? Rita managed before the line went dead. She scratched her head. Dima cheating? But how could she be sure this wasn't just some troll or, as the kids say, a hater? No, wait, Hatterette. The voice was unmistakably female. Maybe some scorned woman getting revenge? Dima was handsome enough to have turned down admirers. Still, why was he bolting out the door at dawn? Calling him a workaholic would be a stretch. The caller clearly knew about his early disappearances. No, she wouldn't act rashly. She'd think it through, weigh every angle. Rita dragged herself to the bathroom, then downed a cup of brutally strong Arabica. Coffee cleared the mind. But what was there to figure out? She needed someone impartial, someone with no skin in the game. Enter Anya, the only person who could help. Rita's best friend, a born techie who thought in straight lines, like vectors on a graph. No nonsense, zero delusions. Rita called her and arranged to meet at a pizzeria that evening. Nothing like drowning sorrows in a margarita. Anya might be pragmatic, but she was also a riot, the perfect tension breaker. Then Rita remembered Ivan had asked for her help at the party. He needed advice on acquiring land in a neighboring town for a rehab center. A noble cause, he'd said, for people in dire straits. The moment she heard it, Rita nearly teared up. What a golden-hearted man. Of course she'd help for a consultant's fee, naturally. The paperwork alone would take weeks, maybe a month. She'd need to send a firm representative. Zina, prepare an order in my name, Rita commanded coolly. Dmitry Petrovich is being deployed on a business trip to Zelenodolsk. Duration remains undetermined. It will depend on work progress. Zina's reaction was instantaneous. The realization that she'd be separated from Dima hit her like a physical blow. A sharp gasp escaped her lips, followed by the clatter of a dropped folder. Rita's observant eyes didn't miss a thing. Well, she's rattled. Good. Let her stew. Should have thought twice before poaching another woman's husband. With a dismissive wave, Rita sent the flustered secretary away without another word. That evening, Rita chose to walk to her meeting, a rare indulgence. Anya, her perpetually punctual friend, should have already been waiting at their favorite cafe. Yet, to Rita's surprise, the usual seat stood empty. Settling into one of the cafe's signature armchairs, their gimmick for enhanced coziness, she ordered her customary double espresso and gazed out the window as twilight draped over the city. A young couple strolled by, entwined like vines, exchanging kisses without a care. Where have my 17 years gone? Rita murmured, a startlingly vulnerable thought for a woman who'd built her reputation on ironclad composure. Then the couple passed under the cafe's exterior lighting. Rita's blood turned to fire. There they were, Dima and Zina, locked in a passionate embrace, kissing with the reckless abandon of teenagers. White-hot fury threatened to consume her. Every fiber of her being screamed for immediate, brutal retribution. Then she remembered Zelenodolsk. Her husband had no choice but to obey. The contract was airtight. Refusal meant termination and crippling penalties. Thank God I arrived early. If Anya had witnessed this, blood would already be on the pavement. When Anya finally stormed in, she took one look at Rita's face and demanded, "What happened?" Rita recounted the morning's anonymous call but omitted the sidewalk spectacle. "I'm certain now Dima's cheating." Anya ordered a latte and muffin with deliberate calm, her expression hardening. Then bang! Her palm slammed the table, rattling china. "Destroy them." "I've already begun," Rita admitted, explaining the Siberian business trip. "And that little tart?" Anya's lip curled. What's her excuse? What's wrong with you? A beat. Wait. Are you two even? Rita's cheeks burned. Maybe once a month. He never initiates, and I don't push. Terrified of pregnancy, apparently. So, it's practically a dead bedroom. That explains everything. Another table rattling slam. I've always known Dima was a spineless, lying parasite. It's written in his weasel eyes. He's not worth the polish on your Louboutins. Patrons turned to stare as Anya's voice rose. You've been carrying this deadweight for years. Need I remind you about the 3 investment deals he torpedoed? Rita had no defense. Every accusation was true. Wake up, Anya hissed. He's been leeching off you while fucking your secretary. You're absolutely right, Rita snorted. My so-called hard worker barely lifts a finger. About as useful as a milk-producing goat, no, even less. Let him warm his chair at the office, pretending to work, but in reality, 0 results. His entire contribution is just noise and show. Suddenly, her face darkened with realization. Though for the past 3 weeks he's suddenly been passionate about work. Rushing to the office at dawn, staying late. And I, the fool, actually believed he'd finally taken the business to heart. Ha! Now it's clear his work is Zina. That's who he's been toiling over. The bitter joke sent her friends into fits of laughter. Laughter, the best medicine even for the most painful wounds. So what's the revenge plan? Anya asked, eyes gleaming like a predator's. Rita laid out her scheme, exiling her husband on a business trip. Let the lovebirds see how long their passion lasted when forced apart. Later, walking home alone, Rita felt an unexpected calm. Anya's company had soothed her rage. The night air gave her space to think about her marriage, about whether there'd ever been real love between them. Or had Dima just been a youthful mistake? She couldn't confuse lust with love. What she'd shared with Dima was purely physical instinct, not devotion. That much was certain. Maybe fate has someone else meant for me, she mused. The thought no longer scared her. If anything, Dima had done her a favor, pushed her toward a decision she'd been too afraid to make. She was ready for divorce. Dima slunk in at 9 p.m., face set for a confrontation. Rita, wrapped in a plush robe, barely glanced up from the TV. I'm leaving you, he blurted. Then paused, waiting for her reaction. To his shock, Rita's expression didn't flicker. She stared at him, stone-faced. She's prettier than you. Younger too, he taunted, desperate to provoke her. You suffocate me. I'm always in your shadow. Silence. Then Rita smiled. Rita leaned against the doorframe, sipping her tea with the serene amusement of a cat watching a mouse throw a tantrum. Dima's face contorted like a child denied candy. I'm a prisoner in this gilded cage. He squeaked, voice breaking comically. I'm leaving. For real this time. The mental image of Yeltsin's drunken resignation speech flashed through Rita's mind. До свидания, Boris Nikolaevich, she murmured, barely suppressing a laugh. With her, I'm a goddamn titan of industry. Dima flailed. You treat me like a glorified coffee fetcher. Our sex life could fossilize and you wouldn't notice. Oh darling, Rita cooed, examining her manicure, your suitcase is where we keep all your other and used things next to your gym membership and that business plan from 2018. She blew him a kiss. Don't let the door hit your alpha male ego on the way out. As the kettle whistled, Rita marveled at life's little ironies. All those years wasted playing wife to a man whose greatest achievement was maintaining a comb-over. The future stretched before her boardroom victories, Parisian weekends, perhaps a discreet affair with that Swiss banker from the G7 summit. Dima's muffled ranting faded into white noise. Let him scream, she thought, it's the only exercise he gets. The bedroom door shook under Dima's impotent fury. You harlot, whoring yourself out to every. The obscenity that followed would have made a longshoreman blush. Rita merely yawned, scrolling through her stock portfolio. Truck stop slut. He tried again, sweat staining his ridiculous I Red Heart Xena t-shirt. How pathetic, Rita mused. 20 minutes ago he was leaving, now he's performing Shakespearean tragedy for an audience of one. She considered applauding. The packing process became its own tragicomedy. Each sigh louder than the last, every sock folded with theatrical care. Is he waiting for me to beg? Rita wondered, watching from the bed. Should I faint onto his collection of Ed Hardy shirts? You'll regret this, Dima hissed, tripping over his own suitcase. I'm taking the good cufflinks. The ones you bought with my Amex? Rita smiled sweetly. Do send Xena my regards when you're living in her studio apartment. Mind the bedbugs, darling. Xena's embrace felt suspiciously like a victory lap. You were so brave. She simpered, stroking Dima's thinning hair. Brave? Rita would have laughed if she cared enough. The man folded faster than a cheap suit. As her phone buzzed with Anya's 10th ding-dong the witch is dead text, Rita realized something glorious. The trash had taken itself out. The good cufflinks were $19.99 knockoffs. Rita knew she'd bought the Real pair for Ivan last Christmas. Don't worry, darling, Rita purred, swirling her espresso like a Bond villain with better taste. You and Dima will land somewhere suitable. A cozy little basement apartment, perhaps? Though do mind the rats, they tend to bite. The next morning, Dima stormed into her office like a hurricane in a cheap suit, waving the transfer order like a white flag of surrender. This is exile. He spluttered, face turning an impressive shade of beetroot. You can't just ship me off to Siberia like some political dissident. Rita didn't even look up from her tablet. Read your contract, sweetheart. Clause 12. 3. Employee may be relocated at company discretion. Or would you prefer we discuss termination and that lovely €500,000 penalty? I'll quit. Do. Her smile could frost glass. Xena's salary won't cover both your vodka habit and child support. 5 minutes later, Xena barged in with all the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. The girl had clearly been crying, mascara streaking her cheeks like war paint. How could you? She wailed. Dmitry Petrovich is vital to this office. And as his wife. Ah yes, Rita cut in, because nothing says professional like a secretary lecturing her CEO on marital affairs. Tell me, dear, does your job description include office mattress or is that a side gig? Xena's face contorted. You frigid bitch. You couldn't satisfy him if. Fascinating. Rita pressed the intercom. Security. We have a terminated employee making a scene. She turned back to Xena. Pack your things. Though given how quickly you unpack for my husband, that shouldn't take long. That evening, Rita walked through the park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath her Louboutins. Each step felt lighter, as if shedding years of dead weight. Funny, she mused, sipping her espresso. All this time I thought I was carrying a marriage. Turns out it was just baggage. Her phone buzzed, Ivan's name flashing on screen. About that land deal in Monaco. Rita smiled. New beginnings came in many forms. Some arrived with screaming matches and slammed doors. Others, with billion-dollar opportunities and Mediterranean views. She typed one word, interested. The chessboard was reset. And this time, she'd play for keeps. The vital employee Dima? He forgot to log out of his work email. Rita may have redirected his entire contact list to a very explicit OnlyFans account. Whoops! The aroma of sizzling shashlik snapped Rita back to reality. When did I last eat? She wondered, realizing her stomach was growling like a disgruntled bear. She strode into the cozy cafe, its warm lighting and minimalist decor a balm to her frayed nerves. Shashlik and grilled vegetables, please, she ordered, then froze mid-sentence. Across the room, Ivan sat like some serendipitous mirage, knife and fork poised over his own plate of shashlik and vegetable ragu. Their eyes met. Rita's smile bloomed before she could stop it. Ritulia. Ivan was at her table in 3 strides, kissing her hand with practiced gallantry. What brings you here? Fate itself must be conspiring in our favor today. Just refueling, Rita quipped, matching his playful tone. They laughed, but Ivan's gaze turned probing. You seem troubled, he murmured, tilting his head. There's a shadow in your eyes. Who dared put it there? Rita hesitated. Pour my heart out to a near stranger. But then, that's exactly why I can. Ivan was safe precisely because he didn't matter. A charming distraction, nothing more. Flirting, harmless fun. But anything beyond that? Not a chance. When his fingers brushed her wrist, she withdrew as if scalded. Wine, please, she called to the waiter, deftly changing the subject. Over the meal, Ivan deployed his full arsenal self-deprecating jokes, compliments that stopped just short of cliché, that roguish grin. Rita laughed, genuinely amused, but kept her walls firmly up. Let him try, she thought, savoring the perfectly charred lamb. I'm not some naive Xena, swooning at the first whiff of attention. As Ivan leaned in, eyes alight with anticipation, Rita dabbed her lips and stood. Thank you for the company, she said, already pulling out her card. Allow me. Ivan reached for the bill. I don't allow anything, Rita corrected sweetly. Especially not from men who mistake courtesy for interest. His face fell comically. Outside, the evening air was crisp. Ivan hovered by his Mercedes, keys jingling hopefully. Need a ride? What I need, Rita said, already walking away, is for you to remember I drive a better car. The next morning, Rita made 2 decisive phone calls. First to her legal team, I want divorce papers drawn up by sunset. Second to her assistants, find me a retreat. Somewhere with trees that actually grow instead of just surviving like I've been doing. By noon, brochures carpeted her desk. One caught her eye: Seagull Lodge, a cluster of pinewood cabins bordering a lake. The photos showed Adirondack chairs angled toward sunsets, trails winding through untouched forest. No spa treatments, no networking events, just silence so thick you could chew it. Perfect, Rita murmured, booking a week. 7 days to remember who I was before I became someone's wife and everyone's boss. Packing proved problematic. Her walk-in closet offered 3 options. Power suits. For intimidating boards. Cocktail dresses. For intimidating exes. Louboutins. For intimidating pavement. I can't hike in stilettos, she muttered, then startled herself by laughing aloud. When was the last time she'd cared about something as frivolous as footwear? Anya arrived mid-giggle, took one look at the closet and groaned. You'll last 1 day without blowouts and Botox. Maybe 2 if you don't encounter a mirror. 3 hours later, Rita stood in a dressing room, staring at her reflection in sweatpants. Actual sweatpants. I look like a college student, she said, turning. You look human, Anya corrected, tossing her a hoodie. Try not to scare the wildlife. Coffee shop interlude. As they sipped macchiatos, Rita's phone buzzed. Dima. She considered letting it go to voicemail, then answered with the cheerful detachment of a customer service rep. Ah, Mr. Smirnoff. Calling to confirm you've signed the divorce papers? No. Then this conversation is over in 3, 2. Anya kicked her under the table. Play nice. He's still got your last name. Correction, Rita smiled, hanging up. He's about to have half of nothing. The barista chose that moment to slide over their pastries. Rita eyed the chocolate croissant like it held life's answers. Maybe it did. 7 days, she thought. 7 days to forget Dima, remember myself, and decide if Ivan's worth the trouble. She took a savage bite. Rita answered the call with the enthusiasm of someone scraping gum off their shoe. Yes? She drawled. Business matter. Dima barked, his voice straining to sound authoritative. Rita listened, her face as expressive as a marble statue. It was almost pathetic watching her lazy lapdog of an ex-husband suddenly pretend to be a working dog. Let him struggle, she thought. Maybe he'll finally grow a spine. Then the inevitable groveling. I was wrong, okay? Dima whined. It was just sex with Zena. I swear on my mother's health. All that bitch cared about was money, American makeup, designer shoes. Who knew Max Factor cost so much? Rita hit speakerphone so Anya could enjoy the show. Her friend's laughter erupted like champagne bubbles. Who's laughing? Where are you? Dima spluttered. None of your business, Rita snipped. Handle work issues with the girls. I'm going on vacation. With that guy? Ivan? His voice cracked like a teenager's. Again, not your concern. You're yesterday's news. Divorce? He screeched. What about our love? To hell with that, love. Goodbye. Rita stabbed the end call button with relish. Anya applauded. Brava. That's how you shut down a man-child. But beneath the triumph, Rita felt nothing. No satisfaction, just emptiness. Time heals, she reminded herself. Allegedly. Dawn painted the highway in gold as Rita's Mercedes purred toward the retreat. Anya's farewell call crackled through the speakers. Sleep in for me. And who knows, maybe you'll meet some rugged woodsman. Rita snorted. Unless he's Bigfoot, doubtful. I'm there to detox from men, not collect more. The open road stretched before her, empty as her post-Dima life. The radio crooned a love song, making her grimace. Had she ever truly loved? Her parents' marriage had been the stuff of fairy tales, her father doting on her mother even after the accident that eventually took her. That kind of devotion was rarer than unicorns. Maybe I'm the problem, she muttered. Maybe I'm just unlovable. The thought sat heavy in her chest. But then, a sign flashed by, Seagull Lodge, 5 kilometers. Rita straightened. Enough moping. She cranked up the music. Whatever awaited her in those woods, it had to be better than dissecting failed relationships on a highway. The memory of her father's unwavering devotion lingered as the road blurred before Rita's eyes. He loved only once, she thought, and loved so deeply it became his entire world. She fumbled for her phone. She needed to call him, to hear that steady voice. Then, a screech of metal. A kaleidoscope of spinning trees. Then nothing. Consciousness returned in fragments. A throbbing skull. The sterile bite of antiseptic. A voice, warm as sunlight. She's awake. Rita blinked up at a woman whose face was a roadmap of wrinkles, crowned by a snow-white nurse's cap. Alive. The nurse crowed. Plenty of time for the afterlife later, dearie. Viktor Antonovich, she's come around. Viktor Antonovich? Rita's muddled brain supplied an image of Danila Kozlovsky. Why am I thinking of actors? Then he appeared tall, with the kind of smile that could power a small village. And was that bubblegum? Welcome back, he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. How are we feeling? Rita tried to speak, but her tongue felt like lead. What happened? She managed, the words scraping her throat raw. Victor's smile dimmed. You, my dear, had a close encounter with a tree. Your Mercedes lost the argument. A beat. Then. Though I must say, he added, tapping his clipboard, you've got the survival instincts of a cat. 9 lives and all that. Rita's fingers crept to her aching head. My father. Already called, Victor assured her. He's on his way. Nearly gave the poor man a heart attack when they told him, but he'll live. He leaned in conspiratorially. Between you and me, he sounded scarier than your CT scan. The nurse snorted. Victor, stop flirting and check her pupils. Who, me? He winked at Rita. Just practicing bedside manner. Rita would have rolled her eyes if it didn't hurt so much. Typical. Even concussed, I attract charming men. But as Victor's gentle fingers tilted her chin toward the light, she noticed something: no wedding ring. Interesting. You were in an accident, Victor explained, his usual cheer dimmed. A hit and run. The police are investigating. He flipped through her chart with practiced efficiency. Now, medically speaking, you've got a fractured spine, a traumatic brain injury, and a broken leg. The scratches, well, let's call those freebies. A beat. Then, with forced levity, God must really like you. Most people don't walk away from head-on collisions. Your Mercedes? Toast. But your airbag? MVP. Rita managed a weak nod. Good news, you'll walk again, Victor continued, his smile returning. Bad news, it'll hurt. A lot. Ready to sweat for it? Another nod. Atta girl. He clapped his hands. We'll start with basic therapy, then move to full rehab. Small hospital, big talent. Oh, and he wagged a finger. No moving. At all. Unless you fancy paralysis as a lifestyle choice. The phone call fiasco. Can I call my dad? Rita rasped. Victor held up the remains of her smartphone, a twisted carcass of glass and metal. Unless you've got his number memorized. Website, she mouthed. His firm. Tomorrow, Victor said firmly. You just woke up from a coma, and he's probably halfway to one himself from worry. Let's not give the man a coronary. Famous last words. By morning, Victor had tracked down her father's company. The call went. Poorly. Sir, your daughter is Ollie. A gasp. A thud. The distant clamor of co-workers shouting Mr. Smirnoff? Mr. Smirnoff. 1 hour later, her father was admitted to cardiology. Anya's arrival. She burst in like a hurricane in designer jeans, freezing mid-step to survey the damage. Christ, Rita, she breathed, sinking into the chair. You look like shit warmed over. Rita's cracked lips curved. Same old Anya. Questions came in soft bursts. What happened? Does it hurt? Who did this? Each met with Rita's labored whispers. Then, where's Dad? Anya opened her mouth. Room service. Victor announced, sweeping in with his entourage. His grin faltered at Anya's glare. Bad time. Anya slipped out of the room like a thief, grateful for the temporary reprieve. No need to spin tales about Rita's father yet. She cast one last glance at the doctor with the Hollywood smile, solid 5 out of 5 on her personal scale before hurrying off to check on the older Smirnoff. Back in the room, Rita floated in a haze of painkillers and something far more intoxicating, Victor's presence. Dad's in Siberia buying equipment, Anya had tossed over her shoulder. Don't worry, he'll visit soon. A flimsy lie, but Rita clung to it. Recovery was easier when buoyed by Victor's daily visits, his pockets stuffed with contraband snacks. Hospital food was a war crime, he declared, his laughter like sunlight piercing storm clouds. Today's smuggled treasure, pirojki. What kind do you like? Victor asked, unveiling the stash with a magician's flourish. Potato? Meat? Cabbage? Surprise me, Rita mumbled, her mouth already watering. They ate like conspirators, grease staining their fingers as Victor held court, talking astronomy, Tolstoy, the absurdity of hospital bureaucracy. Rita listened, mesmerized. With him, time dissolved. Then, trouble, Victor murmured, leaning in. You've got cabbage. Here. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. The world stopped. His lips met hers, soft, tasting of stolen pastries and strawberry gum. Rita's brain short-circuited. This is it, she thought wildly. This is the feeling poets ruin perfectly good paper trying to describe. When they broke apart, Victor's ears were pink. I should probably lose my medical license for that. Worth it, Rita breathed. Rita lay in her hospital bed, tracing the cracks in the ceiling with her eyes, but her mind was elsewhere, lost in the dizzying realization that Victor might be the man she'd spent her whole life waiting for. The hospital grapevine, efficient as ever, had already begun buzzing about their romance. How? Rita wondered. Had someone seen the way his fingers lingered when checking her pulse? Heard their laughter spilling into the corridor during his breaks? The miracle worker. Victor's unconventional rehabilitation methods bordered on wizardry. Rita's progress, once deemed cautiously optimistic by scowling specialists, now defied medical charts. You'll dance at your wedding, he'd promised one evening, adjusting her leg brace with hands that could have sculpted marble. Whose wedding? She'd teased, flushing when he didn't laugh. His talent was criminal for a provincial hospital. Moscow's elite clinics would have traded their PET scanners for his intuition. Yet here he stayed, coaxing life back into broken bodies with a smuggled laptop, for her YouTube therapy, and pirojki, for her soul. Anya's verdict. It's love, Anya declared during her next visit, eyeing Rita's death grip on Victor's gifted laptop. You're hugging that thing like a bridal bouquet. Rita's glow was undeniable. Even the nurses sighed when Victor entered her room, his stethoscope dangling like a misplaced medal of honor. Anya, ever the pragmatist, hid her own flicker of envy. Of course Rita would land the Adonis doctor. Still, she couldn't begrudge her friend this happiness, not after Dima's betrayal. Just don't let him prescribe you heartbreak, she muttered, half serious. Plans were made. Rita would transfer to a Moscow clinic for final recovery. Better equipment. Top specialists. Nonsense, Rita said, clutching Victor's sleeve when Anya brought it up. I'm staying. Anya rolled her eyes. What, you'll break your other leg to keep flirting with Dr. Dreamy? But the truth was in Victor's face the way it fell when Moscow was mentioned. Rita saw it, the fear of losing her masked by professional concern. Yet amid this bliss, a shadow lingered. Why hadn't her father visited? His absence gnawed at her. The man who'd once waited outside her school gates in blizzards now couldn't call. Business in Siberia, Anya said too quickly, avoiding her eyes. Rita's fingers tightened around the laptop. Something was wrong. And Victor, usually so perceptive, suddenly found the floor fascinating when she asked. Rita's father had regained his composure and was preparing to visit her. He was now aware of his supposed business trip to Siberia, realizing it hadn't been fair to put Anya in a position where she had to lie to protect him. Before Rita's discharge, Victor entered her room nervously. His obvious unease immediately put Rita on edge. Your discharge is tomorrow, Victor sighed. What are your plans? Why do you ask? Rita asked warily. Move in with me. Victor suddenly blurted out. Phew, I did it. I rehearsed that for 2 hours. Rita danced with joy, embracing the blushing Victor. I accept, she shouted, not caring who might hear. Victor beamed with happiness. Yes, there would be more to deal with now, telling her father and Anya about staying here, not to mention work matters. Rita said thoughtfully. What about the divorce? We should check. You have a husband? Victor feigned surprise. Well now. In truth, he was pretending. Anya had long since told the doctor everything, about her husband's betrayal and all the rest. Your Dima's a fool. Trading you for someone else. Definitely schizophrenic, Victor laughed. A woman like you should be carried in their arms, not betrayed. Victor then confessed to Rita that he'd noticed her from the moment she arrived at the hospital. He'd been drawn to her immediately. He spoke of how he'd admired her beauty, even in a cast. He'd been afraid that she, a sophisticated city woman, wouldn't even notice him, a provincial doctor. Now he was overjoyed everything had worked out this way. To be honest, it became an evening of confessions from both of them. And the confessions were, of course, about love. The next morning, Anya appeared clutching a huge basket overflowing with roses. Behind her came Rita's father, somewhat pale but cheerful as always. Rita rushed to hug and kiss him. She'd missed him so much. You look so pale, Rita said, eyeing her father questioningly. Tough flight, he deflected. 12 hours, like from America. They sat on the bed chatting peacefully while waiting for the discharge papers to be prepared. Rita's father knew about her divorce from Dima. He understood completely and supported her. He would have done the same in her place. And most importantly, Rita had found the man of her dreams. And she was going to marry him. She had no doubt her father would like him. Victor entered. He wasn't wearing his white coat, just a formal suit. The doctor seemed focused yet nervous. He approached Rita's father first. May I speak? Victor said, pulling a notebook from his pocket. These are my thoughts about my future wife. Written in university. First year. Well, it's actually a drawing. I've always had trouble expressing myself in words. Here, take a look. Rita's father carefully took the notebook from the doctor's hands. The notebook was 16 years old if the date on the cover was to be believed. Rita had still been in school back then. The man read with intense concentration, clearly interested in what was written. Surprisingly, Victor's handwriting was very legible. So much for the stereotype about doctors' handwriting. Suddenly, her father's expression changed. He looked at Rita, then back at the notebook. Then at his daughter again. Incredible. The notebook contained an actual portrait of his daughter. Some kind of mystique. There was no doubt, it was definitely Rita drawn there. Everyone looked and gasped. How could this be? Victor just shrugged. Yes, this was clearly fate. And if Rita had no objections, he wanted her to become his wife. It's completely obvious. Rita's father boomed. If Rita agrees, you have my blessing. Anya squealed like a little girl and threw her arms around her friend. What a miracle. This was practically movie material. No one could believe something like this was actually possible. But apparently it was. Her Majesty Fate. Papa, Rita's voice trembled. There's one more thing. I'm staying in this town. I'm not returning to Moscow. Her father was slightly disappointed. He would be living 100 kilometers from his daughter. But she would be happy here. What about the business? Her father asked. Haven't thought that through yet, Rita sighed. Maybe open a branch here or something. But I know one thing, this is my home now, no question about it. Maybe you have some suggestions? You're the business guru after all. Oh, you fox. Her father smiled. A low blow, just like when you were little. Still such a smooth talker. With all the paperwork in hand, Rita was discharged. Victor invited everyone to his place. His nervousness was evident. How would Rita's father react to a doctor's modest apartment? Would he consider it worthy for his daughter who was accustomed to comfort and luxury? Her father reacted appropriately. After all, he could see how his daughter's eyes shone with happiness. Victor actually impressed the father. In a good way, of course. A talented doctor, a nice little house. Small but quite charming. Wait a minute, her father said. Everything's wonderful, but there's no space here for children. Where would they play hide and seek or tag? And there will definitely be children, right? Victor and Rita bashfully lowered their eyes. Victor entered, no longer in his white coat but dressed in a formal suit. The doctor was visibly tense as he approached Rita's father first. May I speak? Victor asked, retrieving a worn notebook from his pocket. These are my thoughts about my future wife. Written during my first year at medical school. It's a drawing actually. I've always struggled to express myself in words. Here, take a look. Rita's father carefully accepted the notebook. 16 years old, judging by the date on the cover back when Rita was still in school. As he examined the pages, his eyebrows rose in surprise. Against all stereotypes about doctors' handwriting, Victor's script was remarkably clear. Then his expression changed completely. He looked sharply at Rita, then back at the notebook, then at his daughter again. Incredible. There, sketched in faded pencil, was an unmistakable portrait of Rita, her teenage likeness captured years before they'd met. A collective gasp filled the room. Victor simply shrugged. Seems like fate. If Rita agrees, I'd like her to be my wife. Obviously. Rita's father boomed. You have my blessing. Anya squealed like a child and threw her arms around Rita. This is movie material. Actual destiny. Papa, Rita's voice trembled. There's something else. I'm staying here. Not returning to Moscow. Her father's face fell slightly. They'd be living hours apart, but seeing his daughter's radiant expression, he nodded. And your business? I'll open a branch here, Rita said. You're the business guru, advise me. You fox. He laughed. Same manipulative charm since childhood. Later, at Victor's modest apartment, the doctor anxiously watched Rita's father inspect the space. To everyone's relief, the older man approved. Talented doctor, lovely home. Though, he added pointedly, not enough room for grandchildren to play tag. They are happening, yes? Victor and Rita exchanged bashful glances, their silence more telling than any answer. Here's the plan. Rita's father declared, rubbing his hands together. We'll sell your apartment. I've got excellent realtors. The proceeds will build something worthy not for you. A rehabilitation center under the clinic's auspices. His eyes gleamed with entrepreneurial fervor. Patients will come from Moscow, just wait. What's 100 kilometers? But that's not all. You'll live in an annex. We'll add 2 floors at least. And save me a room. I'll visit often. The best room will be yours, Papa. Rita beamed, her heart swelling. Truly, she had the world's greatest father. I'll sell my Moscow apartment too, she added. Why let it sit empty? I'm never leaving this town, not for all the tea in China. 3 days should suffice to wrap up affairs in the capital. The impending divorce loomed, another Moscow trip she dreaded. Already, the mere thought of leaving Victor made her ache. But business was business. Her lawyers had prepared everything. Her apartment and firm were ready for sale. Only signatures remained. And one final conversation with Dima Best had without Victor present. Dima answered on the first ring, his voice dripping with pathetic eagerness. Rita cut through his babbling. Have you signed the divorce papers? Give me another chance, he whined. One tiny chance. His childish pleading turned her stomach. Zina was a mistake. She only cares about money. Welcome to reality, Rita snapped. Exactly what you deserve. All bridges burned. Honestly, I doubt I ever loved you. Just sign and be happy, Dima. Though we could proceed without you, I'm trying to be civil. And for the record, I'm remarrying. The firm's being sold. Need me to put in a good word for you somewhere? So you're marrying the guy you cheated with? Dima's jealousy flared, unfounded as ever. No cheating occurred, Rita cooed. I was faithful. I met him after the accident. Zena said you booked hotel rooms, Dima hissed. That he bombarded you with calls, gifts, wine. Explain that. Rita burst into laughter, the sound sharp as shattered glass. She played you like a fiddle, Dima. And you fell for it hook, line and sinker. That girl should write novels. Her voice dripped with scorn. What brilliant fiction hotel rooms. Gifts. Pure detective novel material. Dima grunted on the other end. You're an idiot, Rita continued, merciless. You doubted your wife but believed Zena's fairy tales. Open your eyes. Provincial girl comes to Moscow hunting for a fool with an apartment and found you immediately. She charmed you, got you drunk, cast her spell. Conversation over. She slammed the phone down. Not another word to that spineless worm. Dima stood frozen, the dial tone mocking him. Rita's fiery words had crushed him utterly. And that laugh, the same carefree laugh from their university days. Suddenly, the truth hit him. Rita was happy again. Genuinely happy. Before Zena entered their lives, he'd never doubted Rita's loyalty. How could he have been so blind? He'd been thoroughly brainwashed. A complete and utter donkey. Moscow wrap-up. The business transfer proceeded with record speed. Rita's father found a prominent businessman to take over the firm, a flattering development, given the company's sterling reputation and meticulously cultivated client base. Rita insisted all female employees retain their positions. They were the backbone of the business. The elite apartment would take longer to sell, given its astronomical price tag in Moscow's premium district. Rita entrusted everything to her lawyer. Strangely, she felt no attachment to the luxurious space. Had it ever brought her happiness? No. Better to jettison this dead weight and pocket the substantial profit. She wandered through the empty rooms, leaving behind all the trappings of her old life: the Italian porcelain, the designer furniture, the state-of-the-art appliances. Let the next owner enjoy them. This fully furnished trend would expedite the sale. Rita knew a thing or two about real estate. Homecoming. With Moscow affairs settled, Rita flew back to Victor, her heart pounding as if 3 days had stretched into years. Finding the house empty, she smiled. Of course he was at the hospital, working himself to the bone as usual. His patient waitlist now spanned months. Yet as she stepped inside, an unexpected certainty washed over her. This was home. Truly, irrevocably home. The Moscow penthouse already felt like someone else's life. Victor had spent her absence drowning in work, the house unbearably empty without her. But now, the front door creaked open. Rita, his voice cracked. She turned, and in that moment, every kilometer between Moscow and this provincial town evaporated. She was exactly where she belonged. The best cure for melancholy was to lose oneself in work, and Victor had done exactly that. Their separation had been agonizing, as if two halves of a single whole had been torn apart. This, Rita mused, must be what cosmic love felt like. The most extraordinary part was how mutual this connection was, as though their souls had been reborn and reunited. Rita had watched countless YouTube videos about reincarnation during her hospital stay and found herself deeply drawn to the idea. Who knew? Perhaps this was exactly how the universe worked. The intensity of her love for Victor was almost frightening, yet it filled her with indescribable joy. They had so much lost time to make up for years spent merely existing, not truly living. Sitting at home without him was unbearable. Without hesitation, Rita called a taxi and sped to the hospital, her heart pounding with anticipation. As she walked down the quiet corridor, she strained to hear his voice behind any of the doors. But the post-lunch lull had settled over the ward, leaving only silence in its wake. She peeked into the staff lounge, where doctors rested between shifts, sipping coffee or grabbing a quick meal. There, sprawled on an old couch, lay Victor, so exhausted he hadn't even bothered to take off his shoes. A cup of cold instant noodles sat untouched on the table beside him. Rita shook her head. This man works himself to the bone. She perched carefully on the edge of the couch and wrapped her arms gently around his sleeping form. How wonderful he was. How long she had searched for him. She could have stayed like this forever, guarding his rest, even if it meant sitting uncomfortably. Then Victor stirred. He turned toward her, blinking sleepily. Is this a dream? He murmured, rubbing his eyes. Are you still in Moscow, or are you really here? I'm here, she whispered back. Good morning, my love. 11 months later. Victor and Rita had married in a modest ceremony at the clinic. Rita's idea. What was the point of a lavish hall filled with strangers raising empty toasts? Here, among friends and colleagues, the celebration felt genuine. Her father came, along with Anya and a few of the girls from her former firm. They brought armfuls of baby gifts, rattles, stuffed animals, all the tiny, tender necessities for the little one on the way. Her father had insisted on funding a honeymoon anywhere in the world, but the newlyweds politely declined. There was too much to do. Rita had thrown herself into launching the rehabilitation center, proving herself a natural in the field. The bureaucratic hurdles were endless, but the center was desperately needed, and she pushed forward with determination. Her father covered the costs and handled the construction and equipment, waiting patiently for the paperwork to clear. Victor juggled his hospital duties with the frantic construction of their new home. Time was slipping through their fingers. Their daughter would arrive soon, and everything had to be perfect. The nursery, furniture, crib, toys. The old house remained untouched. Rita's father had grown fond of it during his visits. Let him keep it, as promised. He'd need it now more than ever. The weight of loneliness in Moscow had become unbearable for him. The birth. Outside the maternity ward, an eager delegation waited, Victor, drunk on happiness, Rita's father, and Anya, bouncing on her heels. When Rita emerged cradling a tiny bundle, a triumphant hurrah erupted. The celebration that followed was lavish, courtesy of her father but intimate, held at home with only their closest circle. Victor even felt a pang of jealousy watching his father-in-law cradle baby Olga, named after Rita's late mother, with such tenderness. The old man, usually so stoic, was visibly moved by the tribute to his beloved wife. At one point, he carried the sleeping infant to the window, murmuring secrets only she could hear. Curious, Victor edged closer. Olga, could it really be you? Her father whispered. Rita talks about reincarnation. I'm a materialist, but who knows? Nothing surprises me anymore. Grow fast, little one, will go to the sea together. You can't imagine how beautiful it is. Victor smiled and retreated. What was he telling her? Rita asked. Planning a seaside trip, Victor winked. Which reminds me, we could use a vacation too. Soak up some sun. Maybe start working on a little brother for Olga? If you insist, Rita laughed. What should we name him? Roman, after your father, Victor declared. Their names deserve to live on as examples of the men we should aspire to be. I'm all for it. 18 months later. The family sprawled across a sun-drenched beach. Rita cradled Olga while Victor manned the grill, assisted by a wine-tipsy Anya. On the sand, Rita's father sat cross-legged, baby Roman snuggled against his chest. Well then, Roman Viktorovich, he whispered to the dozing infant, shall we watch the dolphins? Look, there they are. He pointed to the horizon, where playful backs arched through the waves, a living promise of adventures to come. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. There's more family drama and emotional stories coming. Your support means everything to me.